The communication device on Ambassador Kelrin's desk began flashing red. His three-fingered hands trembled as he activated the screen. What he saw made his blood run cold. His homeworld, Valora Prime, was burning. The images came through in broken fragments. Massive warships filled the sky above his planet's capital city. Bright streaks of energy weapons rained down on the protective shields that covered the population centers. Those shields were failing. One by one, they flickered and died. When they fell, the weapons found the buildings below. Kelrin watched entire city blocks disappear in balls of fire. "Ambassador, we need help." The voice belonged to Defense Minister Holrin, one of Kelrin's oldest friends. The minister's face was covered in dust and blood. Behind him, Kelrin could see people running and screaming. "The Kreth Dominion has brought their entire third attack fleet. We have nothing left that can stop them. Our defense force is destroyed. They are bombing our cities from orbit. We have maybe 3 days before they demand our surrender." Kelrin felt his legs weaken. He sat down heavily in his chair. The Valorian Republic was not a military power. They had only a small fleet, enough to deal with pirates and patrol their borders. They had never imagined facing a full invasion from a power like the Kreth Dominion. The Kreth were ruthless conquerors who had crushed a dozen civilizations in the past century. How many casualties? Kelrin asked, though he was afraid of the answer. "Millions already. The orbital strikes are hitting residential areas. They are not targeting just military installations. They want to break our spirit." Holren coughed, and Kelrin saw smoke drifting past the camera. "We are evacuating everyone we can to the underground shelters, but we cannot hold out forever. Please, Kelrin, we need allies. We need help. Anyone who can send something." The transmission cut off suddenly. Kelrin stared at the blank screen for a long moment. His people were dying. His world was dying. And he was here on Earth, safe in the embassy building, completely helpless. No, not completely helpless. The Valorian Republic had signed a treaty with Earth 2 years ago. It was mostly about trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. There had been some language about mutual cooperation and friendship, but nothing specific about military aid. Still, it was something. It was the only hope he had left. Kelrin gathered the reports and data files. He organized everything into a clear presentation. Then he requested an emergency meeting with the United Earth Council. To his surprise, they granted him an audience within 2 hours. That was unusually fast for such a large bureaucratic organization. The council chamber was an impressive room with high ceilings and seats arranged in a semicircle. Representatives from all of Earth's major regions sat looking down at him. Kelrin stood at the center podium, feeling very small and very alone. He had never been good at public speaking, but this was not the time to let fear control him. "Honored members of the council, I come before you with an urgent plea." Kelrin's voice was steady, though inside he was falling apart. "My homeworld is under attack by the Kreth Dominion. They have brought overwhelming force against us. Our defenses have fallen, our fleet is destroyed, our people are being killed by the thousands every hour." He activated the holographic display and showed them the footage. The council members watched in silence. Some looked shocked, others looked sad. A few showed no emotion at all. Kelrin could not tell what they were thinking. "We are asking for humanitarian assistance. Medical supplies, food shipments, temporary shelter for refugees. Anything Earth can spare. We signed a treaty of friendship with your world. I am here to ask you to honor that friendship in our darkest hour." The council members began talking among themselves. Kelrin waited, his heart pounding in his chest. After several minutes, the council chairman, an older woman with gray hair, raised her hand for silence. "Ambassador Kelrin, the council has heard your request. We will review the situation and provide you with our response within 48 hours. We understand the urgency of your situation." That was it. The meeting was over. Kelrin left the chamber feeling hollow. 48 hours? Would his people even survive that long? And what would Earth send? A few cargo ships? Some medical teams? It was better than nothing. But it would not stop the Kreth. Nothing could stop the Kreth now, back at the embassy. Kelrin collapsed in his private quarters. He had never felt so powerless in his entire life. He thought about his family back on Valora Prime. His sister worked as a teacher in the capital. His brother was a farmer in the northern continent. Were they still alive? Were they hiding in some shelter, waiting for death to find them? A priority message came through on his personal device. It was from Admiral Helen Cruz of the Earth Defense Force. Kelrin did not know much about human military ranks, but he understood that an admiral was someone very important. Ambassador Kelrin, this is Admiral Cruz. I want you to know that I have personally reviewed your situation. The images from your homeworld are difficult to watch. Please be assured that Earth takes its treaties very seriously. We will have a response for you soon. Stay strong. The message was brief, but something in the Admiral's tone made Kelrin feel a small spark of hope. Maybe Earth would send more than just a few supply ships. Maybe they would send enough to actually make a difference. He did not dare hope for too much, though. Earth was still relatively new to galactic politics. They had only joined the interstellar community about 50 years ago. Their military was rumored to be strong, but no one really knew for sure. They had never been involved in a major conflict with any of the established powers. Kelrin spent the next 48 hours in agony. Every few hours he received fragmentary reports from Valora Prime. The news was always bad: more cities fallen, more shields destroyed, more casualties. The Kreth were taking their time, methodically destroying everything that made his civilization worth saving. When the 48 hours finally passed, Admiral Cruz contacted him again. This time it was a live video call. The Admiral sat at a large desk with star maps visible on screens behind her. She looked directly at the camera, her expression serious. Ambassador Kelrin, Earth has reviewed your request for assistance. I am pleased to inform you that we will be sending our response immediately. A fleet will depart for Valora Prime within the next 12 hours. Please prepare your government to coordinate with our forces upon arrival. A fleet! Kelrin felt a wave of relief wash over him. Thank you, Admiral. How many ships are you sending? 5? 10? We will be grateful for any assistance you can provide. Admiral Cruz smiled slightly, and there was something in that smile that Kelrin could not quite read. You will see when they arrive, Ambassador. Cruz out. The transmission ended. Kelrin sat back in his chair, feeling confused. The Admiral's manner had been strange. Almost as if she knew something he did not. But what could it be? He had asked for humanitarian aid? Earth was sending a fleet to deliver those supplies? That made sense. What Kelrin did not know, could not possibly know, was that at that very moment, across human space, military bases were erupting into coordinated action. This was not a relief mission being prepared. This was something else entirely. Something the galaxy had never seen before. Humanity was going to war. Captain Jake Morrison was eating breakfast in the officers' mess hall at Luna Command when the alert came through. Every display screen in the room suddenly switched to show the same message in bright red letters. Fleet mobilization order. All personnel report to stations immediately. This is not a drill. The room went silent for exactly 2 seconds. Then chaos erupted. Officers abandoned their meals and ran for the doors. Jake grabbed his tablet and sprinted toward the command center, his coffee forgotten on the table behind him. His heart was pounding. In 15 years of service, he had never seen a full fleet mobilization, order outside of training exercises. The command center was already packed with personnel when he arrived. Giant screens covered the walls, showing star maps and ship positions. Admiral Cruz stood at the central platform, issuing orders in rapid succession. Jake found his assigned station and pulled up his display. What he saw made him read it 3 times to make sure he was not seeing things. 40-7 warships, 6 dreadnoughts, 12 carriers, dozens of support vessels. The entire First Fleet was being activated. Where were they going? What threat required this kind of response? Listen up, people. Admiral Cruz's voice cut through the noise. The room fell silent immediately. 3 hours ago, we received a distress call from the Valorian Republic. Their homeworld is under attack by the Kreth Dominion. Their defenses have fallen. Their people are dying. The Valorians are our allies, and we do not abandon our allies. We are going to Valora Prime, and we are going to end this attack. Questions? A young lieutenant raised her hand. Ma'am, what are our rules of engagement? The Kreth have committed an act of war against an Earth ally. We will eliminate their fleet and establish a security perimeter. You are authorized to use all necessary force to complete this mission. The Kreth will have one chance to surrender. If they refuse, we will destroy them. The Admiral's voice was cold as ice. Any other questions? No? Good. Get to your ships. We launch in 12 hours. Jake made his way to the docking bay where his ship waited. The UES Ranger was a destroyer, smaller than the big capital ships but fast and deadly. His crew was already aboard, running pre-flight checks and loading weapons. His executive officer, Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez, met him at the airlock. Skipper, we are loading every missile we can fit. The armory is sending up plasma torpedoes, railgun rounds, and enough conventional explosives to level a small moon. Sam's usual smile was gone. His face was grim and focused. This is the real thing, isn't it? Looks that way. Jake moved through the ship, checking systems and talking to his crew. They were all professionals, trained for exactly this kind of situation, but training was different from reality. Some of them looked nervous. Others looked excited. A few looked scared, though they tried to hide it across human space. The same scene was playing out at every military installation. On Mars, Commander Lisa Park supervised the launch preparations for the UES Defiance, a massive battle cruiser bristling with weapons. Her crew of 800 worked around the clock to get the ship ready for combat. At the Titan shipyards, engineers were doing the impossible. Ships that had been in maintenance were being rushed back to combat status. Civilian transports were being converted into troop carriers and supply vessels. The entire industrial capacity of the solar system had shifted into war mode. Colonel Danny Wright stood in the briefing room of the UES Thunderhawk, an assault carrier designed to deploy Marines directly into combat zones. His Marines filled the room, 300 of the toughest soldiers Earth had to offer. They had fought pirates in the asteroid belt, put down rebellions on outer colonies, and trained for every possible combat scenario. Here's what we know, Danny said, bringing up a holographic map of Valora Prime. The Kreth have orbital superiority. They are bombing cities and killing civilians. Our job is to get down to the surface and stop that from happening. We will be securing population centers, evacuating refugees, and engaging any Kreth ground forces we encounter. This is not going to be easy. The Kreth are tough, and they do not surrender. But I have seen what you people can do, and I have no doubt we will complete this mission. One of the Marines spoke up. Sir, what if the Kreth fleet is still in orbit when we arrive? Danny smiled coldly. Then our fleet will deal with them. Have you seen the ship roster for this operation? We are bringing enough firepower to crack a planet. The Kreth are not going to know what hit them. Lieutenant Sophie Turner sat in her quarters aboard the UES Vengeance, Admiral Cruz's flagship, reviewing tactical data. She was young for her rank, only 26, but she had graduated top of her class from the Naval Academy. This would be her first real combat operation, and she was terrified that she would make a mistake. The scale of this operation was staggering. She had studied military history and knew that humanity had never deployed this many warships at once for any reason. The cost alone was enormous. Fuel, ammunition, supplies, personnel. This single operation would consume resources that could fund entire colonies for years. Why was Earth doing this? The Valorians were nice enough, but they were not particularly important. They had no special resources, no strategic value. They were just a small, peaceful civilization that happened to sign a trade agreement with Earth. Was that really worth going to war over? Sophie thought about the images she had seen from Valora Prime, cities burning, people running for their lives, children screaming for their parents. Maybe that was reason enough. Maybe humanity had decided that they would not stand by and watch innocent people die when they had the power to stop it back at Earth's orbital command center. Admiral Cruz reviewed the final fleet composition with her staff. Everything was coming together exactly as planned. The ships were ready. The crews were ready. The logistics were handled. In a few hours, they would jump to hyperspace and cross the distance to Valora Prime in 3 days. Admiral, we are receiving inquiries from several galactic news networks, her communications officer reported. Word has gotten out that we are mobilizing the fleet. They want to know where we are going and why. Tell them nothing, Cruz replied. Let the galaxy find out when we arrive. I want the Creth to have no warning about what is coming for them. A senior captain spoke up. Ma'am, with respect, are you sure about this? We are committing nearly half of Earth's total naval strength to this operation. If something goes wrong, we will be vulnerable. Cruz turned to face him. Captain, the Valorians asked us for help. They are our allies. If we ignore them now, what message does that send to every other species in the galaxy? That Earth's word means nothing? That our treaties are worthless? No, we made a commitment and we will honor it. Besides, the Creth need to learn something. What is that, ma'am? That attacking humanity's friends is a very, very bad idea. The 12 hours passed quickly. One by one, the warships launched from their docking stations. They gathered in formation beyond the orbit of Mars, a fleet unlike anything most of them had ever been part of. Jake stood on the bridge of the Ranger, looking at the displays showing all the other ships around them. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Admiral Cruz's voice came through on the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Cruz. Today we embark on a mission that will define how humanity is seen by the rest of the galaxy. The Valorians are counting on us. The eyes of countless civilizations will be watching what we do next. We are going to show them what humanity stands for. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We stand with our allies no matter the cost. And we will not tolerate aggression against those under our protection. Today, we remind the galaxy why they should never underestimate the human race. All ships, prepare for a hyperspace jump. The space around the fleet began to shimmer and distort. Reality bent as the massive vessels punched through into hyperspace. In seconds, they were gone, racing across the stars at speeds that defied normal physics. 72 hours later, they would arrive at Valora Prime. The Creth Dominion had no idea what was coming. They had attacked what they thought was a defenseless ally of a minor power. They were about to discover just how wrong they were. Fleet Master Throck stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds, watching the final defense platform around Valora Prime explode in a shower of debris. It had taken 3 days, but the Valorian resistance was finally broken. Their fleet was destroyed. Their orbital defenses were gone. Their planet lay helpless beneath him. Report, Throck commanded, his 4 eyes scanning the tactical displays. All major cities have lost their protective shields, his tactical officer replied. We have destroyed 60% of their industrial capacity. Estimated casualties are approaching 8 million. The Valorian government is attempting to negotiate surrender terms. Throck made a satisfied growling sound deep in his throat. This had been easier than expected. The Valorians had no real military to speak of. Their technology was outdated. They had relied on their peaceful reputation to keep them safe. That had been a fatal mistake. Ignore their surrender requests for now, Throck ordered. Continue orbital bombardment of military targets. I want them completely broken before we discuss terms. The Dominion does not accept surrender from the weak. We crush them first. His crew moved to obey. More energy beams lanced down from the Creth warships, striking factories and spaceports. Secondary explosions bloomed across the planet's surface. Throck felt pleased. This conquest would earn him a promotion and a new command. Perhaps they would give him the 4th Fleet and send him to conquer the rimward territories. Fleet Master! The sensor officer's voice cut through his thoughts, sounding panicked. That was unusual. Creth officers did not panic. Multiple hyperspace signatures detected. Bearing 215. Distance 4 light minutes. I count. Fleet Master, I count 47 vessels. No, 50. The sensors are having trouble resolving them all. Throck spun toward the sensor station. What? Who would be foolish enough to come here? Scan them, identify their origin. The officer worked frantically at his console. Unknown configuration. The computer has no match in our databases. Wait, I am getting energy signatures consistent with... No, that cannot be right. These readings are off the scale. Show me, Throck demanded. The main display shifted to show the new arrivals. Throck felt his confidence waver for the first time. The ships that had appeared were massive. The largest ones were easily twice the size of his flagship. They were arranged in a perfect military formation, and even from this distance, he could see that their weapons were already charging. Incoming transmission, the communications officer announced. They are broadcasting on all frequencies. Put it through. A human face appeared on the screen. Female, with graying hair and cold eyes. She wore a military uniform that Throck did not recognize. When she spoke, her voice was calm and measured, but there was steel underneath it. This is Admiral Helen Cruz of the United Earth Defense Fleet, Kreth vessels. You are in violation of Valorian sovereignty and have committed acts of war against an ally of humanity. You have 60 seconds to power down all weapon systems and withdraw from this system. Failure to comply will result in the complete destruction of your fleet. This is your only warning. Throck stared at the screen in disbelief. Humans? He had heard of them. They were newcomers to galactic politics, primitives who had barely left their own solar system. They had no business interfering in Dominion affairs, and they were outnumbered. His fleet had 90 ships to their 50. He started laughing. His crew looked at him in confusion, but he could not help it. These humans must have no idea who they were threatening. The Kreth Dominion had conquered worlds when humanity was still figuring out fire. They had crushed civilizations that were 1,000 years more advanced than these upstarts. Open a channel, Throck ordered, still chuckling. Let me speak to this admiral. When the channel opened, Throck bared his teeth in what humans might interpret as a smile. Admiral Cruz, you have made a grave error. The Kreth Dominion does not respond well to threats. You are outnumbered and outmatched. Turn your ships around and leave while you still can. This is not your concern. The human admiral's expression did not change. You have 40 seconds remaining. You dare? Throck's amusement turned to anger. We have 90 warships. You have 50. Your ships are pretty, but they will burn just the same. I will give you one chance to retreat, human. After that, I will add your vessels to my list of conquests. 20 seconds. Throck cut the transmission. Insolent creatures. They would learn their lesson the hard way. All ships, combat formation. Target the human fleet. Prepare to fire on my command. His fleet began to turn, bringing their weapons to bear on the human vessels. The range was still long, but they would close that distance quickly. This battle would be over before it really started. 10 seconds to human deadline, his tactical officer reported. Fire when ready. Throck commanded. The first volley from the Kreth fleet lanced across space. Hundreds of energy beams and plasma bolts streaked toward the human ships. It should have been devastating. Instead, something impossible happened. The human vessels did not even try to dodge. They just activated their shields and took the hits. The Kreth weapons splashed harmlessly against barriers that seemed absurdly strong. A few shots got through, but they barely scratched the armor underneath before Throck could process what he was seeing. The humans returned fire. The universe exploded. Jake Morrison gripped the armrests of his command chair as the Rangers' weapons cut loose. His destroyer was part of Squadron 7, assigned to take down the Kreth right flank. His railguns fired in rapid sequence, sending solid slugs of metal downrange at a significant fraction of light speed. Direct hit on Target 3, Sam called out from the weapons station. Their shields are down. They are taking heavy damage. Keep firing, Jake ordered. Do not let up. Around them, the rest of the human fleet was engaged in the systematic destruction of the Kreth vessels. The massive dreadnoughts were targeting the Kreth capital ships, each shot from their main guns capable of punching straight through shields and armor. The carriers had launched their fighter squadrons. Swarms of small craft that moved so fast the Creth Point defense systems could not track them. It was not a battle. It was a massacre. Lieutenant Sophie Turner watched from her station on the Vengeance, as the tactical display updated in real time. Creth ships were disappearing from the screen at an alarming rate. They were trying to return fire, but their weapons were generations behind human technology. Their shields could not stop railgun rounds traveling at relativistic speeds. Their armor was like paper against plasma torpedoes that burned at temperatures found inside stars. "Ma'am, the Creth are breaking formation," Sophie reported to Admiral Cruz. "They are attempting to scatter." "Do not let them," Cruz replied calmly. "All ships pursue pattern Delta. I want every single Creth vessel either captured or destroyed. None of them leave this system." The human fleet split into smaller groups, each one chasing down fleeing Creth ships. The destroyers were fastest, running down the smaller vessels and disabling them with surgical precision. The larger ships focused on the Creth cruisers and battleships, overwhelming them with sheer firepower. Commander Lisa Park coordinated the Defiance's attack on a Creth heavy cruiser. Her battlecruiser was built for exactly this kind of fight. Her weapons officer, a calm woman named Ruth Cole, called out firing solutions with mechanical efficiency. Target locked. Firing main battery. The Defiance's primary weapons unleashed hell. Energy beams carved through the Creth ship's shields like a hot knife through butter. Secondary explosions rippled along its hull. Within seconds, it was dead in space, atmosphere venting from dozens of breaches. "Target neutralized," Ruth reported. "Moving to next target." On Valora Prime, Ambassador Kelran watched the battle from a command bunker deep underground. The Valorian military had patched together enough sensor equipment to track what was happening in orbit. Kelran stared at the displays, unable to believe what he was seeing. "They are winning," Defense Minister Holren whispered beside him. "By the ancestors, they are actually winning." Winning did not describe it. The human fleet was tearing through the Creth like they were made of tissue paper. Ships that had terrorized a dozen civilizations were being swatted aside like insects. The battle had been going for less than 20 minutes, and already a third of the Creth fleet was destroyed or disabled. "What kind of weapons are those?" one of the Valorian officers asked, his voice filled with awe and terror in equal measure. Kelran did not have an answer. He had thought he understood humanity. They were traders, explorers, scientists. They seemed peaceful and friendly. He had never imagined they possessed this kind of military power. Where had they been hiding it? Why had they never shown it before? Fleetmaster Throck was no longer laughing. His flagship shook under repeated impacts. His shields were failing. Half his fleet was gone. The rest were running for their lives, and the humans were hunting them down one by one. "Damage report," he roared. "Multiple hull breaches. We have lost engines 3 and 4. Weapons are at 40% capacity. Shield generators are offline." His damage control officer's voice was shaking. "Fleet Master, we cannot win this fight. We need to retreat." Throck looked at the tactical display. The human ships were everywhere, moving with precision and coordination that seemed impossible. Their weapons never missed. The silence after the battle was almost deafening. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Ranger, watching the debris field that now orbited Valora Prime. Pieces of Creth warships drifted past, still glowing from the heat of their destruction. His crew was quiet, processing what they had just done. "Skipper, we are receiving new orders from the Admiral," Sam said, breaking the silence. "We are assigned to Outer System Patrol. Nothing gets in or out without clearance." Jake nodded. "Helm, set course for the edge of the system." "Oops, I want full sensor sweeps every 15 minutes. If a Creth supply ship so much as thinks about entering this system, I want to know about it." As the Ranger moved away from the main fleet, Jake looked at the planet below. Even from orbit, he could see the scars of the Creth bombardment. Entire regions were dark where cities used to shine. Smoke rose from hundreds of fires. The Valorians had suffered terrible losses, and the battle was only the first step in helping them. Near the planet, The human medical ships were already beginning their work. The UES Mercy, a hospital vessel the size of a small city, established orbit directly above the largest population center. Shuttles began launching immediately. Carrying medical teams and supplies to the surface, Dr. Patricia Lane stood in the shuttle bay of the Mercy, organizing her team. She was a trauma surgeon with 20 years of experience, but nothing had quite prepared her for this. The preliminary reports from the surface indicated millions of wounded. Infrastructure was destroyed. Hospitals were rubble. The Valorians were doing their best, but they were overwhelmed. "Listen up," Patricia called to her team. "We are going into a disaster zone. You will see things that will stay with you forever. Do not let it stop you from doing your job. These people need us. Every life we save matters. Everyone understand?" Her team nodded. They were all professionals, selected for exactly this kind of mission. They loaded into the shuttles and descended to the planet's surface. The landing site was a large open area. That had been a park before the attack. Now it was filled with makeshift shelters and thousands of injured Valorians waiting for help. Patricia stepped off the shuttle and was immediately struck by the smell. Smoke, blood, and something else she could not identify. The sound was worse. People crying, screaming, calling for loved ones. Her team moved quickly, setting up trash stations and emergency treatment areas. The Valorian doctors and nurses, who had been working non-stop for days, looked at them with expressions of desperate relief. Patricia went to work. A young Valorian child with burns covering half his body, an elderly female with a crushed leg, a male who had been buried under rubble for 2 days. One after another, she treated them, saved the ones she could, comforted the ones she could not. Hours blurred together. Meanwhile, Colonel Danny Wright and his Marines were landing at strategic locations across the planet. The UES Thunderhawk disgorged 300 fully armed soldiers in combat armor. Their mission was to secure critical infrastructure and establish safe zones for civilians. Danny watched as his troops fanned out across the ruined city. Buildings that had stood for centuries were now just broken shells. Bodies lay in the streets, some Valorian, some Kreth. The Dominion had landed ground forces in several locations. And while most had retreated when their fleet was destroyed, some were still fighting. "Contact. 200 meters, Sergeant Bill Hughes called over the radio. "I have visual on a Kreth squad, approximately 12 hostiles. They are advancing on a civilian shelter." "Take them down," Danny ordered. "Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Protect the civilians." The firefight was brief and brutal. The Kreth were tough fighters, but they were also cut off from support and facing Marines with superior equipment and training. Within 3 minutes, it was over. The civilians in the shelter were safe. Danny moved through his area of operations, establishing checkpoints and secure perimeters. Valorian police and security forces, what was left of them, were more than happy to work with the human Marines. Together, they began the process of restoring order to the chaos. In orbit, Commander Lisa Park supervised the logistics of the operation from the Defiance. The scope was staggering. Millions of people needed food, water, medical care, and shelter. The human fleet had not been designed for humanitarian operations on this scale, but they were adapting. "Commander, we have a problem," her logistics officer reported. "We are running low on basic medical supplies. The demand on the surface is exceeding our projections by 300%. Lisa thought quickly. "Contact the fabrication ships. Have them retool to produce medical equipment and supplies. I know it will slow down other operations, but this takes priority. Also, send a message back to Earth. We need a supply convoy, and we need it yesterday." "Yes, ma'am." Lisa looked at the streams of data flowing across her displays. Every human ship in the fleet had converted part of their internal space to refugee centers. Cargo bays were filled with temporary housing. Crew quarters were shared with displaced Valorians. It was cramped and uncomfortable, but it was working. Thousands of people who would have died in the ruins were now safe aboard human vessels. Lieutenant Sophie Turner found herself with an unexpected assignment. Admiral Cruz had assigned her as a liaison officer to the Valorian government. Apparently, someone had decided that a young, friendly face would be better for diplomacy than hardened military officers. She met with Minister Holren in what was left of the government command center. The building had taken damage in the bombardment, but enough of it still stood to function as a headquarters. Holren looked exhausted, like he had not slept in days. Lieutenant Turner, on behalf of the Valorian people, I must express our deepest gratitude, Holren said, his translator rendering his words into English. When we sent our distress call, we hoped for perhaps some medical supplies. Instead, you brought a fleet that saved our civilization. We do not have words adequate to thank you. Sophie felt uncomfortable with the gratitude. She was just doing her job. Minister, we are glad we could help. That is what allies do. Now, let us talk about what comes next. Your people need food, shelter, and medical care. We can provide that in the short term, but we need to help you rebuild your own capacity to take care of yourselves. Over the next several hours, they worked out the details. Human engineers would help rebuild critical infrastructure. Agricultural ships would supplement food production until the Valorian farms could recover. Construction teams would assist in rebuilding homes and factories. It would take years, but Valora Prime would rise again. Captain Jake Morrison was halfway through his patrol when his sensor officer detected something. A small convoy of Kreth supply ships attempting to sneak into the system using a debris field for cover. Helm, intercept course? Best speed, Jake ordered. Comes, hail those vessels. Let them know they are in restricted space and need to surrender immediately. The Kreth ships tried to run when they saw the Ranger approaching, but they were slow cargo vessels with no chance of outrunning a military destroyer. Jake positioned his ship between them and their escape route. Kreth vessels, this is the US Ranger. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. If you attempt to flee or engage weapons, you will be destroyed. This is your only warning. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the Kreth ships powered down. They surrendered without firing a shot. Jake detailed a boarding party to secure them and sent them under escort to the main fleet, across the system. Similar scenes were playing out. The human fleet had established complete control. Nothing moved without their permission. It was a level of military dominance that the Valorians had never imagined possible. 3 days after the battle, the situation had stabilized enough for Admiral Cruz to hold a formal meeting with the Valorian leadership. The meeting took place aboard the Vengeance, in a conference room that had been hastily set up for the occasion. Ambassador Kelrin attended, along with Minister Holren and several other high-ranking Valorian officials. They sat across from Admiral Cruz and her senior officers. The contrast was stark. The Valorians looked exhausted and traumatized. The humans looked calm and professional. Admiral, we have received preliminary casualty reports, Holren said quietly. 8.3 million dead. Another 12 million wounded. 40% of our industrial capacity destroyed. 30 major cities heavily damaged or destroyed. The environmental damage alone will take decades to repair. Cruz listened without interrupting. When Holren finished, she spoke. Minister, those numbers are tragic. But they would have been far worse if we had not arrived when we did. The Kreth were not going to stop. They were going to keep bombing until you surrendered, and then they would have occupied your world and enslaved your people. That is what the Dominion does. We understand, Kelrin said. And we are grateful. But Admiral, I must ask, why did you do this? Why did Earth commit such resources to save us? We are not a powerful nation. We have nothing of strategic value. The cost of this operation must be enormous. Cruz leaned back in her chair. Ambassador, 2 years ago, your people signed a treaty with Earth. That treaty contained language about mutual cooperation and friendship. When you asked for help, some on our council wanted to send a few cargo ships with medical supplies and call it done. But that is not who we are. 3 weeks after the battle, the first supply convoy from Earth arrived at Valora Prime. 20 massive cargo vessels dropped out of hyperspace, their holds filled with everything the Valorians needed to begin rebuilding. Food, medicine, construction equipment, power generators, water purification systems, and thousands of prefabricated housing units. Jake Morrison watched from the Ranger as the convoy moved into orbit. His ship was still on patrol duty, and the weeks had been long and boring. They had intercepted a few more Kreth supply ships trying to sneak into the system, but otherwise the Dominion had stayed far away. Word of what happened here had spread fast. Down on the surface, Dr. Patricia Lane had barely slept since arriving. Her medical teams had treated over 50,000 wounded Valorians, and more kept coming. The human field hospitals were working miracles, using advanced medical technology that seemed like magic to the locals. Injuries that would have been fatal were now survivable. Diseases that had no cure were being eliminated. She sat in her temporary office, reviewing patient files, when one of her nurses brought in a young Valorian female. The girl was maybe 10 years old in human terms, with large eyes and soft blue fur covering her body. One of her arms was badly burned. "What is your name?" Patricia asked gently, her translator converting the words. "Lena," the girl whispered. "Well, Lena, I'm going to fix your arm. It will not hurt, I promise." Patricia applied a regenerative gel that the Valorians had never seen before. Within minutes, the burned tissue began to heal. Lena stared in wonder as her arm returned to normal, the pain fading away. When it was done, she threw her good arm around Patricia and hugged her. "Thank you, human doctor. You saved me." Patricia felt tears in her eyes. This was why she had become a doctor. This was why all of them were here. Every child they saved, every life they preserved, made all the hardship worthwhile. Colonel Danny Wright was having a different kind of day. His Marines had been working with Valorian security forces to clear out the last pockets of Kreth resistance. Most of the enemy soldiers had surrendered or been eliminated, but a few small groups were still hiding in the ruins. "Colonel, we have located another group," Sergeant Bill Hughes reported. "They are holed up in a destroyed factory on the east side of the city. Approximately 8 hostiles. They have taken some civilian hostages." Danny swore under his breath. Hostage situations were always complicated. "Surround the building. Do not let them escape. I am on my way." When Danny arrived, he assessed the situation quickly. The factory was a burned-out shell, but it still provided good cover. His Marines had the building surrounded, but the Kreth were not stupid. They knew that if they killed the hostages, the humans would show no mercy. Danny decided to try talking first. He approached the building under a white flag, his weapon lowered but not holstered. A Kreth soldier appeared in a broken doorway, weapon pointed at him. "We know we are trapped," the Kreth said through a translator. "We want safe passage off this planet. Give us a ship, and we will release the hostages." "No," Danny replied calmly. "You are not getting a ship. You are not getting off this planet. What you are getting is a choice. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the laws of war. You will be fed, housed, and eventually returned to your people. Or you can fight, and my Marines will kill every single one of you. The hostages will not save you. We have snipers positioned all around this building. We have breaching charges ready. We can end this in seconds. Choose." The Kreth soldier stared at him for a long moment. Danny could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. Finally, the soldier lowered his weapon. "We surrender." The hostages were released unharmed. The Kreth soldiers were taken into custody. It was one more problem solved. One more step toward peace and stability. Lieutenant Sophie Turner had been busy helping coordinate the reconstruction efforts. Human engineers were working alongside Valorian crews to rebuild power plants and water treatment facilities. It was slow work, but progress was visible every day. She stood on a hill overlooking one of the damaged cities, watching construction drones place the framework for new buildings. A Valorian engineer named Realm stood beside her, pointing out the different work sites. "That area will be a new hospital," Realm explained. "And over there, a school? We are building better than before, stronger, more resilient." "That is good," Sophie said. "But Realm, can I ask you something? How do your people feel about what happened? About the war, the destruction, everything?" Reln was quiet for a moment. We are angry, sad, traumatized. Many of us have lost family and friends. Our world will never be the same. But we are also grateful. Grateful that humanity came when we called. Grateful that someone cared enough to help us. Before this war, we thought we were alone in the galaxy. Now we know we have friends. Sophie nodded. That was the message Admiral Cruz wanted to send. That humanity stood with its allies. That no one had to face threats alone. Back on Earth, the news of the battle had created a political firestorm. Some praised the military action as necessary and just. Others criticized it as expensive and risky. The debate raged in government chambers and news programs. But for the people who had been there, who had seen the devastation and helped the survivors, there was no debate. They had done the right thing. They had saved millions of lives and shown the galaxy that humanity was a force for good. Admiral Cruz stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, reading the latest intelligence reports. The Kreth Dominion was in chaos. Their third attack fleet had been their most powerful force, and humanity had destroyed it in less than half an hour. The loss had shaken the Dominion's leadership to its core. Other civilizations were taking notice too. Dozens of ambassadors had contacted Earth requesting meetings. Some wanted to form alliances. Others wanted to discuss trade agreements. A few wanted to test whether humanity's military power was real or just a lucky victory. Admiral, we are receiving a priority transmission from Kreth High Command, her communications officer announced. Put it through. A Kreth official appeared on the screen, his expression carefully neutral. Admiral Cruz, the Dominion wishes to discuss terms for a ceasefire and the return of our captured personnel. Cruz had been expecting this. Very well. Here are our terms. The Kreth Dominion will immediately withdraw all forces from Valorian territory. You will pay reparations for the damage you caused. You will sign a formal non-aggression treaty with the Valorian Republic. And you will guarantee that no Kreth vessel will enter Valorian space without permission for the next 50 years. These terms are non-negotiable. You have 72 hours to respond. The Kreth official looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Cruz's expression stopped him. He nodded stiffly. We will present your terms to the High Command. The transmission ended. Cruz allowed herself a small smile. The Kreth were beaten, and they knew it. They would accept the terms because they had no choice. The alternative was watching humanity destroy more of their fleets. 2 months after the battle, the situation at Valora Prime had stabilized to the point where Admiral Cruz felt comfortable withdrawing most of the fleet. A small task force would remain to provide security and continue assisting with reconstruction, but the majority of ships could return home. Jake Morrison prepared the Ranger for departure with mixed feelings. Part of him was eager to get back to normal duties. Another part felt like they were leaving a job unfinished. The Valorians still had so much work ahead of them. Skipper, we just received a message from the surface, Sam said. It is from a school that our medical teams helped. They wanted to say goodbye. Jake pulled up the message. It was a video of hundreds of Valorian children, all waving at the camera and shouting thank you in their language. Some held up drawings of human ships and soldiers. Others had made signs with messages like, "We love humans," and "Thank you, Earth." Jake felt a lump in his throat. This was what they had been fighting for. Not glory or conquest, but the chance for these kids to grow up in peace. Commander Lisa Park oversaw the departure of the Defiance, with similar emotions. Her crew had worked around the clock for 2 months, and they were exhausted. But they had also accomplished something incredible. They had helped save a civilization. As her ship prepared to jump to hyperspace, Lisa looked one last time at Valora Prime. Lights were returning to the dark cities. Smoke was clearing from the skies. Life was returning to normal, or at least a new normal. It would take years for the Valorians to fully recover, but they would recover. Humanity had given them that chance. Colonel Danny Wright gathered his Marines for a final briefing before they departed. They stood in formation in the Thunderhawk's main bay, 300 soldiers who had done impossible things. I want you all to remember what we did here, Danny said. We did not come here to conquer or to take. We came here to protect people who could not protect themselves. We gave them hope when they had none. We showed them that humanity stands with its friends. That is something to be proud of. That is something worth fighting for." His Marines responded with a thunderous cheer. They had lost no one in the operation, a minor miracle given the intensity of the combat. They were going home as heroes, even if most of them did not feel like heroes. They had just done their jobs. Dr. Patricia Lane was one of the last to leave. The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within days of the battle, every major civilization had received reports about what happened at Valora Prime. Most dismissed them as exaggerations or propaganda at first. No single fleet could destroy a Kreth armada in 27 minutes. It was impossible. Then the evidence started arriving. Sensor logs from neutral merchant ships that had been in nearby systems. Combat footage recovered from destroyed Kreth vessels. Testimony from survivors on both sides. The impossible became undeniable. Humanity had done exactly what the reports claimed. In the capital city of the Theran Confederacy, Supreme Chancellor Vorn reviewed the data with growing concern. The Therans were one of the older and more powerful civilizations in the galaxy. They had watched humanity's expansion with mild interest, but had never considered them a threat or a significant power. That assessment was clearly wrong. How accurate is this analysis? Vorn asked his military advisor, a grizzled old officer named Krell. Very accurate, Chancellor. We obtained sensor data from 3 independent sources. The human weapons technology is at least 50 years ahead of ours. Their shields are virtually impenetrable by conventional weapons. Their ships are faster and more maneuverable than anything we have. And their tactics suggest a level of coordination that implies either highly advanced artificial intelligence or exceptional crew training. Vorn sat back in his chair, thinking. What are their intentions? Are they planning to expand aggressively? Build an empire? Krell shook his head. Our intelligence suggests otherwise. They deployed this fleet specifically to defend an ally. They had a treaty with the Valorians, and they honored it to the extreme. Since the battle, they have focused entirely on humanitarian assistance and reconstruction. They are not claiming territory or demanding tribute. By all accounts, they are preparing to leave most of their forces and return home. That makes no sense, Vorn said. They have overwhelming military superiority and they are just giving it away? They could dictate terms to half the galaxy right now. I know, Chancellor. But that appears to be the human philosophy. They help their friends and leave. It is completely contrary to how power normally operates in galactic politics. Vorn made a decision. Open a diplomatic channel to Earth. Tell them the Theran Confederacy wishes to discuss a formal alliance. If humanity is going to be a major player in galactic affairs, we want them on our side. Similar conversations were happening across dozens of star systems. Species that had ignored Earth before were suddenly very interested in forming relationships. Some wanted protection. Others wanted access to human technology. A few wanted to ensure they did not end up on humanity's bad side. In the Kreth Dominion's capital, the political situation had become chaotic. Fleetmaster Throck had been executed for his failure at Valora Prime. 3 members of the High Command had been removed from power. New doctrines were being written, and at the center of all of them was a single directive: avoid conflict with humanity and its allies at all costs. War leader Morth, newly appointed to replace one of the disgraced commanders, reviewed the combat footage for the 100th time. He had fought in dozens of battles over his long career. He understood warfare. What he was seeing in this footage made no sense according to everything he knew. How did they move so fast? He muttered to himself. How did their weapons penetrate shields that should have held? How did they coordinate such a large fleet with perfect precision? His aide, a younger officer, offered a hesitant answer. Some of our analysts believe the humans use artificial intelligence to control their fleets. Others think they have some kind of neural linking between their ships. A few believe they are simply better trained than any military force in the galaxy. Morth shut off the display. It does not matter how they do it. What matters is that we never face them again. Issue orders to all border fleets. If they encounter human vessels, they are to withdraw immediately. No exceptions. The Dominion cannot afford another defeat like Valora Prime. On Earth, the political debate continued. The operation had cost billions of credits and put half of Earth's military at risk. Some politicians argued it was worth it, that humanity had established itself as a major power and gained valuable allies. Others claimed it was reckless and unsustainable. President Carter addressed the United Earth Council in a closed session, defending the action. What we did at Valora Prime was not about money or power. It was about showing the galaxy who we are. We are not conquerors. We are not exploiters. We are protectors. When our friends need help, we answer that call completely and without hesitation. That message is worth more than any amount of resources. But not everyone was convinced. Senator Hughes stood to voice his opposition. Mr. President, I understand the sentiment. But we cannot police the entire galaxy. There are hundreds of civilizations out there, many of them facing threats. If we commit to defending all of them, we will bankrupt ourselves and stretch our military beyond breaking point. Then we choose our allies carefully, Carter replied. We make treaties with those who share our values. We build a network of mutual defense, not an empire. The Valorians were the first test. They will not be the last. But each time we honor our commitments, we build trust. Each time we stand with our friends, more species will want to be our friends. That is how we create a safer galaxy. The debate would continue for months. But the action at Valora Prime had set a precedent that would be hard to reverse. Captain Jake Morrison returned to Luna Command and immediately requested 2 weeks of leave. His crew deserved rest after what they had been through. The paperwork could wait. The medals and ceremonies could wait. Right now, he just wanted to go home to Colorado and not think about war for a while. But before he could leave, Admiral Cruz summoned him to her office. He arrived expecting a debriefing or new orders. Instead, she offered him a drink and gestured for him to sit. You did good work out there, Jake, she said, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. Your squadron performed flawlessly. 0 casualties, multiple enemy captures, and you maintained your patrol sector for 2 months without a single breach. That is exactly the kind of leadership we need. Thank you, ma'am, Jake replied, accepting the glass. But I was just doing my job. Everyone out there did their part. That is true. But I'm not talking about just this operation. I'm talking about what comes next. Cruz took a sip of her drink. The galaxy has changed, Jake. We changed it. Every species out there is now reassessing their position relative to Earth. Some will want to be our friends. Some will want to test us. And some will see us as a threat. We need people who understand that we are not conquerors. We are guardians. People who will use force when necessary, but always in service of protecting the innocent. Are you offering me a promotion, Admiral? Eventually. Right now, I am offering you a choice. You can go back to routine patrol duty, or you can be part of something bigger. We are forming a new task force specifically for rapid response to threats against our allies. Think of it as a permanent version of what we just did at Valora Prime. Interested? Jake thought about it. Part of him wanted the quiet life, the routine patrols, the safety of predictable duty. But another part, the part that had watched Valorian children wave goodbye, knew what his answer would be. I am in, Admiral. Cruz smiled. Good, report back in 2 weeks. Enjoy your leave. Commander Lisa Park had a different homecoming. She returned to Mars where her family lived, expecting a quiet reunion. Instead, she found herself surrounded by reporters and well-wishers. The crew of the Defiance had become celebrities. Heroes of the Valorian campaign. Her younger brother, who was still in high school, greeted her at the spaceport with a huge grin. Lisa, you're famous. Everyone at school wants to know what it was like. Did you really destroy 6 Kreth ships? 5, Lisa corrected, laughing despite herself. And I did not do it alone. I had 800 people working with me. But the attention made her uncomfortable. She had not gone to Valora Prime for glory. She had gone because people needed help. The fame and recognition felt wrong somehow, like it missed the point of what they had done. Dr. Patricia Lane received a different kind of recognition. The Valorian government had awarded her their highest civilian honor for her work saving lives on their planet. The ceremony was broadcast across both Valorian and human space, showing footage of the patients she had treated and the hospitals she had helped establish. When reporters asked her how it felt to be a hero, Patricia gave them an answer they did not expect. I am not a hero. The heroes are the Valorian doctors and nurses who kept working even when their hospitals were being bombed. The heroes are the civilians who pulled their neighbors from the rubble. I just had better tools than they did. Anyone with the same technology could have done what I did. But her humility only made people admire her more. Lieutenant Sophie Turner found that her experiences at Valora Prime had changed her. She had joined the military for career advancement and excitement. What she got instead was a profound understanding of what service really meant. She requested a transfer to the diplomatic corps, wanting to help build the alliances that would make future military interventions unnecessary. Mo Cruz approved the transfer personally. We need people like you, Sophie.